Hello, Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional level 2, and the creator of SNAP Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities. I'm here again with two of my favorite people, but we're all together at the same time, and I'm so excited. I'm here with Michelle Minette and Melanie Mize. We got a lot of M's happening today. We're going to talk about trigger words for court. Apparently, there are some words that the court doesn't really like that much. Let's start with Michelle. And Michelle, can you introduce yourself to us and let us know a little bit about what it is that you do? And then we will move to Melanie for an introduction so that Melanie can introduce herself as well. But Michelle, why don't you go first? Who are you? Why are you here? What do you do?
Hi, I'm Michelle Minette. I run a practice in Hamilton, Ohio called F All That Wellness Coaching. I'm a certified holistic life coach with extensive experience and training in personality disorders and narcissistic personality disorders particularly. So I help people heal from narcissistic abuse. I run a support group every other week on a donation-only basis, and I work with people individually, and I am working on creating programs to help people learn, women especially, learn how to feel empowered using the tools or the techniques that I've learned helping people heal from narcissistic abuse.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Melanie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Melanie Mize. I'm an attorney practicing in Hamilton County, Ohio. I run a law practice that focuses on family law, child custody, divorce, things like that.
Now, Melanie, this is your arena. You're the one that goes to court. You're the attorney, and you have identified 3 words that you found to be not so court friendly. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and why it is that you felt it was important for us to make this video?
Sure. So attorneys love words. We like to use them a lot, but every once in a while there's a word that is kind of comes up a little too often, and maybe a word or a term that becomes just so popular and liberally used that they get disconnected from their actual meaning. And when that happens, sometimes it can be off-putting or kind of irritating to judges and magistrates and maybe even to custody investigators. And so sometimes the choice of words can really make or break a case. So I have some terms that are kind of currently like this, that they have a really specific meaning when they're used by a mental health professional, but when parties use it during their custody or divorce case, they can actually detract from what they're trying to get the court to understand about their case. And it really winds up kind of coming across as if you found your legal argument on TikTok, and detracts from kind of the seriousness of what your issue is. And so I just wanted to come to some experts here and see if you could maybe tell us what these terms mean to you, and then maybe give some tips on an alternate way that parties could convey these concepts to a court. So the first word is narcissist. A lot of people call someone else in their custody proceedings a narcissist, and that word has become extremely off-putting to courts. So do either of you have some suggestions on what these parties can do to relay these concepts, or tell us what a narcissist is?
Well, I would start by saying, let the narcissist call out that the other person's a narcissist, right? Because they tend to do it anyway.
So if it's the narcissist that is slinging the accusation at the other person that they are the narcissist, that can work in your favor, actually, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's the narcissist that's the one pointing the finger. But for this situation, we can assume that the person who's using the word is speaking truthfully about their experience with another person. Would that be true? Melanie, would you agree that the person using the word is speaking from their perspective honestly about their experiences with the other person? We can assume that this is not meant in any way, shape, or form to be manipulative.
Right. Yeah. So I'm referring to a circumstance where someone is accurately describing this other person, but maybe they just shouldn't specifically use that term.
Yeah, and I have to say that to my clients quite frequently, which is, please do not use this word with that person. Please do not take what I've just told you and go right back to them and use the same language, because they're going to go to TikTok, they're going to go to Facebook, they're going to go to YouTube, and now they're armed and weaponized, ready to go because you use this one word, and they're not going to be able to handle that type of language, and they're going to probably weaponize it, twist it all around. So let's just not use the word altogether if we possibly can. Michelle, do your people do the same thing? Do they want to go home and go, I just learned today that you're a narcissist?
Absolutely. And oftentimes they've already used the word now, right? That's been the shift over the past few years. Oftentimes they've come to me after they've already used the word. So they've already weaponized. And it's the same reason that therapy isn't indicated for narcissists, because the more they learn about what's going on, right, the better they are at it, right? The more they learn about it, the more they weaponize it against, which goes back to my joke. If the narcissist is the one that's slinging it, let them do it, because they're going to hang themselves. Mm-hmm. But I think if we go back a little bit here, right, like narcissism it takes a lot of interviews and testing and time, and an expert psychologist who understands personality disorders and has been trained in psychological testing in order to diagnose whether or not somebody's a narcissist. When we use the term narcissist, we're talking about somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder. And so one of the reasons it's a good thing not to sling the term around is because you don't have to be a narcissist to be narcissistically abusive.
So how else can these parties convey this to a court, these behaviors that they're seeing, or be able to describe this type of abuse?
There's the term coercive control, depending on what about the narcissism that we're discussing. What is it about what is it that they're trying to convey? Are they trying to say that they're self-serving? Are they trying to say that they lack emotional intelligence? Are they trying to say that they're abusive and controlling? So it depends on what the word is meant to describe. And then for us to come up with other ways to describe that. But narcissism itself is such a broad term. And it really is a descriptive term. It is a clinical term too, but it's also just an everyday descriptive term that anyone's allowed to use at any time. It's not the same thing as saying that person has narcissistic personality disorder. It's just saying that's narcissistic as a descriptive term. But what about it is narcissistic? Is it that they lack self-awareness? Is it that they fail to see the needs of others? That they cannot anticipate the needs of children? They can't discern the needs of the children. They're not able to locate or express their emotions in a way that is not harmful. I mean, what is it about the narcissism that's coming to the surface? That's what we want to focus on. And what is it we're trying to convey with the word narcissism? What is it we're trying to describe?
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that too. I don't know that finding another word is necessarily the solution here. What the court is looking for is a pattern of behavior that is abusive, maladaptive, dysfunctional, toxic even, right? And so I wouldn't even use any of those words. I think it's more a matter of showing that there is a pattern, right? There's a pattern where if it's a parent, they put their needs above their child. There's a pattern of them using the child to punish the other parent. And I wouldn't even use that phrasing, right? I think it's a matter of proof, right? On this occasion, this happened. On this occasion, this happened. And on this occasion, this happened, right? And so it's reasonable to believe that the child is not going to make it to the extracurricular activities that they're supposed to show up for because something came up every single time for the other parent when they were in their care. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. Mandy, you've given us some potential categories of behaviors that people can look out for, and then they need to come up with some examples of those things and just show those examples and be able to say, this is why, this might be not in the best interest of the child.
Another way to say it might be lacks pro-social interpersonal skills, struggles with pro-social interactions.
Those are pretty big words.
I like is focused on impression management. I've written those in my psych reports a lot, and that is a big thing for people who are narcissistically abusive, meaning that they're more their focus is on what things look like instead of what they really are.
Another one that just popped in my head is the phrase malevolent creativity.
I like that.
Okay.
That's so hard for people to believe exists. However, it does. And that's one of the things that we're trying to express to the court, is that this person is not only doing this on purpose, but they're doing it strategically. They're being creative about ways to make this whole process more difficult for everyone, so that they can feel that they're in control, so that they can feel like that they're punishing everyone else, that they can have their victim, narrative that they can tote around to everyone. Look what's happening to me. And all of that takes malevolent creativity. And it's hard to convince people that that's something that exists, but that's one way to say it too, is that they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it strategically.
All right. You ready for the second word?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. A lot of times parties accuse the other person of gaslighting them. And that term has become so overused, and I find is often used maybe when it's not very appropriate to do so, like the person that's using it is missing the meaning of it. So what is the meaning of gaslighting, and what is another way that parties could describe this act?
I think Michelle should take this one first.
I had the honor of somebody highlighting my definition of gaslighting in a meme recently. So thank you for that. Talking Solutions, I think is who it was. But anyway, yeah, I say it's arguably one of the most damaging forms of emotional abuse, right? It's a systemic system of behaviors and persuasion that target somebody to get them to eventually question their perception of reality. And it's something that takes place over time. It's not just one lie, right? And so I get so hard to watch TikTok or Reels or anything and watch somebody in a video just say, oh, they gaslighted me. I'm sick of people gaslighting me without wanting to comment, you're using it wrong, right? And so, yeah, I think that I'm sick of hearing people use it too now. Yeah. What are your thoughts? You more to add to what
my definition of it has always been the denial of a shared reality.
I like that.
You saw it, I saw it, other people saw it, and it's being denied. It's a shared reality. It's not just my reality. It's a shared reality. It didn't happen in a vacuum. I wasn't alone in a room. You were there. I was there. That person was there. The whole family was there. The whole country was there.
Yeah.
And then we're going to deny that reality entirely. And it's not a matter of opinion. It's not a matter of perception. It's a matter of facts. But today we live in the world of alternative facts and fact-resistant people. And that makes the concept of gaslighting, not only does it sort of give it teeth and let people use it more and more, but it also sort of creates this fertile soil for things that aren't true to gain wings and take off. Because there's no police standing around, there's no reality police standing around going, there's no such thing as alternative facts. That's not a thing. That's not how it goes. That wasn't the biggest one ever. We all saw it. There weren't that many people there, but we're going to say that it was the biggest inauguration ever in the history of this country. That's a good example of how gaslighting works. I also would like to mention a video that Michelle and I just did called The Silver Lining Syndrome. And we're talking about betrayal blindness and how people are witnessing things but don't see what's right in front of their face. It's so obvious, but yet we're blind to it. So gaslighting is a major problem, but unfortunately, like what you've both described, it's become such a hot word to use that now when someone hears it, they just roll their eyes. But it is a very damaging thing that people do. Psychological warfare, psychological abuse, brainwashing. We can't use that, can we?
No. And I want to point out too, like the reason it's so damaging is because the worst thing that you can take from somebody really is their perception, their trust, and their perception of reality, right? If you can't trust what you're taking in from the world around you, then how can you move effectively through the world? So yeah. So then what other what other word do you use? I mean, because like I think a good example of it is, let's say you were at a doctor's appointment and you watch the doctor tell them you do not have cancer. And then you go home and you bring up something and they say, well, because I have cancer. And then you say, no, you don't. You were at the doctor's office. Their response is, really? You're going to talk to somebody who has cancer that way? That's gaslighting.
Yes.
But does it require a pattern then, more than one instance? Or
yes.
Even just that? Okay.
It still requires a pattern.
Okay. So once again, these people can just come up with examples and just be able to show a pattern of something where someone else is denying the obvious facts of a situation.
Yeah.
And then just never use the word gaslighting.
Yeah. And here's the thing though, too. And I feel like this is important to recognize when we talk about court and trial, right? Our judicial system, and I'm saying this out of judgment, whether it's a good or a bad thing, right? But it is based on like the way that trials go. It's based on using narcissistic tools, right? It's based on, even if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, there might be a loophole where it's not really a duck. And so it uses gaslighting, rug sweeping, blame shifting, right? In order to present a possible other scenario. So it's not, there's doubt, right? So there's reasonable doubt. And that's what narcissists do, is they create a scenario where there's reasonable doubt. I don't think there's another term that you can use for gaslighting because of that. And I don't think there's a way to prove gaslighting because of that. I would put my efforts more on proving the instances of abuse that are clear cut. And there's a strong pattern. What's your thought on that, Mandy?
I agree, because the experience of being the target of the gaslighting is not one that many can understand or even believe exists. So to try to express that experience in court is going to make someone look like that they have something wrong with them.
Right.
Why is it that, in a sense, the processes of court or the culture of court sort of involves those sort of strategic moves, right? So what we're talking about here is strategy that is used in the home, that's used in intimate partner relationships. And that's what makes it so dangerous, is that that doesn't belong there. That's not where that's supposed to be going on. There are arenas, there are environments where strategic thinking and strategy is appropriate. It's supposed to be happening there, but it's not supposed to be happening in your intimate partner relationship. A lot of our clients walk into court and they have this Pollyanna view that it's all about the truth. And that's not true. It isn't all about the truth. It's about the cards that you have and how you're going to play them based on the cards the other people have and which ones you think that they're going to play. And then knowing what the rules are and then learning how to play the game in the best interest of your client. correct me if I'm wrong. It's not like walking into a therapy session where we want people to be putting their guard down and being vulnerable and being genuine and being honest, and that someone in the room is going, I care about what you experienced. I want to know what's true to you. And it does matter what happened to you. That's not happening there. So these individuals that you see that are so emotionally dysregulated because of the abuse that they have endured, and now their custody issues, the parenting plan, I mean, their whole life is in upside down mode, and they're not sure what's coming next and who they can trust, and it's very, very messy. So when they enter into the court system and see how that works, it can be very it can really make them feel hopeless that, oh, I see, this is just more of what I've been doing at home. So I think you make a really great point, Michelle, about that strategy that gets used. But in terms of how do we show gaslighting in the courtroom, it's here's the fact, here's the proof, here's the fact, and here's the proof of the denial of this fact. The person was there actually and saw it too. Here's a picture, they were in the room. Now they're saying it never happened. To me, that's pretty much what we do in a way clinically. When someone's coming to me and they're being gaslit and they've come out of a history of being gaslit, I act as the frontal lobe. I act as the person who, or their touch point of reality, keeping them engaged with reality. Okay, let's get our fact list out. Don't forget your fact list. What are the facts? And that calms the brain down and helps people be more grounded. So as an attorney, and you're helping your client navigate a situation where they have been gaslit, the more affirming facts that we can build up, the more regulated that person is going to be.
Mm-hmm. You know, I got an image of Richard Gere's song and dance number from Chicago. And I get it every time, you know, when I'm dealing with a client who is confused and thinks that, you know, court is about the truth. I always pull it up in my head. And it's interesting, too. I noticed this because I was supposed to, I was on my way of going to become like a forensic psychologist, which is how I have all of it. Training and stuff. And so one of the things that I had to face was, how am I going to, if I'm brought in as an expert witness, how am I going to handle the reactivation of these techniques being used on me in a courtroom? And I think it's important to remember that for all of us and our clients, is that when they go into a courtroom, they are risking reactivation or triggers to their trauma simply because of the tactics that are associated with trial. And I love that you pointed out, Mandy, you know, that difference, you know, that this is in court, this is where it's supposed to happen. At home is not where it's supposed to happen.
I'm starting to feel a little personally attacked by your definition here.
Oh,
so okay.
maybe we should also say the reason that those tactics are used in a courtroom in order to create reasonable doubt is because everybody deserves a defense where every stone is overturned, right? Because we don't want to. I personally had a very close family friend when I was young, convicted and served 10 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. And so the reason it happens in a courtroom is because everybody deserves that level of defense. It is important, you know, to explore every single possible scenario. Does that help, Melanie?
Kind of. Maybe I should just lean in and say, you know, I'm a professional gaslighter. I don't know. But you're both right. And I've actually heard this from clients that the system itself, the process of being in court, is abusive. Yeah. And it is. Parties, you know, especially in custody proceedings, there are two parents that are pitted directly against each other. And the whole process is pretty traumatic for people. So like, I understand your point. That's a good one. But, you know, maybe before.
You can't think of anything more personal, you know, that we're talking about your relationship with your children, the time that you're spending with them, where you can take them to the doctor, where you can't take them to the doctor, whether you have access to their school, to what goes on at school, their birthdays, the holidays. I mean, it's basically your life. It's not, it's not a lawsuit over somebody getting fired that they felt they shouldn't been fired, or it wasn't a fender bender that we're going to court over. This is your life. And what becomes the fodder that we're tossing around are things like your mental health. That's super personal. Well, she has a history of substance use disorder. All right, well, that was 16 years ago. We're digging that up now. It's everything personal about you, and it's a major character attack. And one of the most triggering things for survivors of abuse is being mischaracterized, and to not feel like that they are heard fully and that they're not fully understood. So that mischaracterization that's coming at you from the other side is enough to just send a survivor like, well, I have to defend myself. That's not right. That's not me at all. How can they make me look that way? I mean, it's personal. It's personal. But the difference is when you're at work and you work in the courts, you are not in that personal mode. You are in your work mode, or what I call business pants. You have your business pants on. Your brain is operating differently. You're using different parts of your brain. If we could get you on an fMRI, Melanie, sitting right next to your client while you're in court, I promise that this part of your brain's going to be lit up and this part of their brain's going to be lit up. And they're operating out of survival mode and you're operating out of strategy. And that's got to be a struggle for you to have to help bring those people back into that strategic, more logical thinking.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add too that I think benefit of the doubt is what creates enablers or flying monkeys, right? That perpetuate the abuse. And so that's what court is, and it should be. That's what it should be for most cases, most of the time. It's just, in this case, it's just one more place for people to give somebody the benefit of the doubt while they can dog whistle through the court proceedings, and nobody else is going to see that you're being hurt or abused.
Well, if there's anyone that I would like to have gaslighting on my behalf, it would be Melanie.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Well, we poked fun at that for a little while. Melanie, what's another word that can be triggering to the court?
Okay. So sometimes what we hear is a party accusing the other person of manipulating or using the word manipulation. And that is more of a term that would be used by an expert. And so that can be a little off-putting to the court. So what's another way to describe that?
Disingenuous, inauthentic.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like my definition of because I get people that ask me this when I teach. People are like, well, what's the difference between good communication and manipulation? And manipulation is framing things in a way where you're using peripheral routes of persuasion in order to get somebody to agree to do something they wouldn't normally agree to. So that's manipulation, right? Good communication means that you're communicating in a way that somebody hears what you're saying in an open way and then feels free and not pressured to make a decision on their own. And so I'm trying to think of how you would. I think it would have to be situational, right? Like, again, you'd have to demonstrate the situation to be, and I think it goes back to that term you used earlier, Mandy. What was it about the coercion?
Well, we've got coercive control, malevolent creativity would fall kind of in that same area of manipulation. But it's the part about the manipulation that I think is coming to the surface is that the person who's doing the manipulating is not being genuine, is not being forthright. They are obfuscating. They are leaving out important information. They are bringing forward information that is not important to obfuscate the important information. There are strategic moves that the person does to get to what they want without really fully informing the people involved as to what's going on. So it's taking a back door to getting what you want instead of taking the front door. So how can we describe that? They're skipping over direct communication. They are circumventing direct communication.
I like what you were saying before, Michelle, that it, kind of comes down to persuading someone to act in a way they normally would not act.
Right.
And that's a pretty basic concept and definition there.
Yeah.
Well, for the people that are really frantic and panicky in court, there are kids involved. So we got to remember that if we're most likely talking about managing the children in a shared parenting situation, and that's where the manipulation is happening. And how does that affect the children?
Well, so we could, like, I don't know, like I was trying to think of examples, right? So like if they argued for, let's say, parenting time, but then they're out of town during that parenting time and they have like a grandparent or a nanny, watching the kids, but you didn't get first right of refusal, right? That's something somebody would call manipulative, right? And so you would have to just demonstrate, I think in that case, wouldn't you just have to demonstrate what's best for the children, but then also point to, I guess you'd have to have a first right of refusal in the agreement, right? But most of the people I talk to, it's in there. But that would also be an argument for adding first right of refusal too, wouldn't it?
First right of refusal causes a lot of arguments once it's put into a plan, because people try to find ways to kind of subvert it, or it's like then they're always trying to find a way to prove that the other person didn't give them their first right of refusal. It keeps parties in conflict. So
Wow.
I personally don't like those provisions. A lot of this comes up when someone says that the child is being manipulated into, say, not wanting to go over to the other parent's house, or something like that. So it's, dad bought a new puppy so that, the kid wants to just stay at dad's house with the new puppy, and they say they don't want to go to mom's house.
Right. And how do you prove that and say, well, he just got a puppy so that they want to be over there and that they don't want to be at my house? That makes you look like that you're the problem when you say things like that. But we all know that that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
We all know that that's exactly, they never wanted a dog. They hate dogs. You wanted to get a dog. They said no. The kids were begging for a dog. They were begging for a dog every birthday. No, 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 no. All of a sudden, dude has a dog. So you know that it is manipulative. But it's a matter of being able to prove that in court and have evidence that shows this style or this pattern of interaction. And furthermore, that it's harmful to the kids. And how is it harmful to the kids? And how can we see that it has been harmful through this proof? That there's a way that we can show that not only is it happening, but that it's also causing problems.
Right. And now we're flirting at the boundary of a whole nother video that we should do at some point, because we're flirting with getting into parental alienation, because that's how it happens. When you have trouble, I guess I'm assuming you have trouble proving it in court, so you have to be able to show that pattern. And so this time it was a puppy, right? This time it was a puppy. Last time it was a new PlayStation. The time before that it was, well, the grandparents are coming into town and it just happened to be on your weekend. Right. And the time before that, right. And so establishing that pattern that things keep happening when the child's supposed to be with you. But also, I wonder, I don't know if there'd be any value in also recognizing that no big things happen when it's not your time with the child, or when it doesn't disrupt, you could have held on to the Xbox until the next visitation, or presented the Xbox the week before. Same with the so again, another term instead of manipulation, right?
The
I think we're
problem,
still going back to that idea, find your specific examples and show the pattern.
Yeah.
exactly, because I was thinking about the word intent. The thing about trying to convince that manipulation is happening is that this person intends to do these things or doing it on purpose. Well, what if we remove that from the equation? Because that's the thing that no one believes and it's hard to prove. What if it's not intentional? It's how it happens, that, well, they're over there with the puppy now. And now we're going to the allergist because, as it turns out, Bobby's allergic to dogs. And I have expressed this, that there's allergies now as a result of this, and you can see the communication happening. And the other parent is just really happy about the puppy and completely ignoring the fact that there is an allergy to dogs now that they didn't know about before, right? So it would have to be showing that they did it, but that you could maybe remove the intent piece and make it more about that they are oblivious. So if we go more towards obliviousness rather than intentional, that might be a better route to take.
That's a good call. But you could probably also, I don't doubt though, that the parent that is accusing them of manipulation has not communicated and said, why didn't you give the dog earlier? Why didn't you give them the PlayStation why didn't your parents come on a weekend because they're retired and they do nothing, right? Except travel around to visit their kids, and so if you can point out that communication has happened, then you can also show effort on the parent that's accusing the other one of manipulation to engage in a communication to stop that from happening in the interests of the kids and the attachment that the children deserve to have to both parents that's being disrupted by obliviousness and blatant avoidance of communication to correct the obliviousness. Willful ignorance, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a plethora of that going on, don't we? Willful ignorance. Ladies, this has been really interesting. I like this a lot. I don't know about you two, but I feel like we could do a million of these videos. We have a lot of things in common, but yet we approach the topics from differing perspectives. It all comes together, though, for our clients. For those that are involved in court proceedings, that they're doing a post-decree, battle that they're trying to play out, whether they're coming to therapy, whether they're getting support through a support group, or they're enlisting in a program to help them heal. All of these things come together, and it's very hard for them to navigate. And it's important that they have professionals on their team that understand and that get it, that can have your back in a way that exhibits a deeper level of understanding of their circumstances, because it's not easy to come by. So for any of you that are watching or listening, don't forget that you've got me, you've got Michelle, and you have Melanie out here that are ready to help you and that can give you that type of care that you may not be able to find in other places. But Melanie, let me ask you, do you think that we were able to come up with some ideas today that would be helpful for those 3 words? And let's just repeat them. It was narcissist, gaslighting, and manipulation. And amazingly, that those 3 words just go together like peas in a pod, huh? So much so that we made a video about it. What do you think? Did we do a good job of coming up with some alternative ways to look at it?
Yeah, I think so. I think we did. And they do go together. So I often have all 3 of these come up in the same case. And so it's really good to give these parties some pointers on how to avoid the pitfalls of using those things.
And Michelle, thank you so much for making this video with me. And Melanie, thank you so much for making this video. We will get together again and do more. And thank you all for listening or watching. Goodbye.